What is up, Primes? Nathonis here, back with another video for you. And today we will be discussing design changes between G1 and the Align continuity. Because, why not? Let's start with Optimus. I think he's probably one of the most similar looking, because he's gotta be that recognizable. Windows for the chest, the blue helmet, even wheels on the legs. Everybody recognizes those features, right? Wrong. What if I told you that that was actually, the wheels on the legs is actually not in G1? So, that was something that was implemented into your mind through either the movies or Transformers Prime. Seriously, look at his G1 model. He does not have wheels on his legs. And if they do, where did you find that image exactly? But anyway, he's got a very iconic design, essentially. He's always been a red and blue truck, red for the torso, blue helmet, blue legs. That's typical Optimus. Well, in Prime, he carries over most of those traits. Actually, he carries over all of those traits. The only design aesthetic that he doesn't carry over is the grille in his stomach. Why? Because instead of being a flat-nosed truck, he's a regular semi-truck with, an engine block. And the engine block forms his arms. So, that's where the grille is. The grille is in his arms. And that's why his ab region is it's just metal plates. That's it. No truck grille. So, carry over some of the G1 aesthetic, you ain't gonna find a place to put the grille. I do like Prime's designs though, because it's a mix between the movies and G1. So, a nice balance. And I like the way MGO puts it. Optimus Prime is a red and blue truck. Are you surprised? I know I am. He's always gonna be a red and blue truck. Never anything else. I hope. I'm watching you, Beast Wars. I'm watching you. Bumblebee is one of the more iconic designs. No matter what he looks like, you can always tell it's Bumblebee. So, in G1, he started out with the entire roof of the car, the Volkswagen Beetle, as his chest and stomach. Which didn't make a lot of sense considering where the hell did the rest of him come from. Yeah, his feet were the front of the car, but where did his arms come from? Guess maybe the doors, but that's it. Yeah. That was his design in G1. In Prime, he borrows heavily from the Bay films with the front of the car forming the chest, and since then that's kind of been a trademark Bumblebee feature. But, come to Robots in Disguise, he's got the window chest thing going on that is very prominent in the series. Optimus looks like a very beefed up G1 version in Robots in Disguise, so hardly anything to talk about there. And beefed up G1 in Prime. Bumblebee looks like Bumblebee, but different, if that makes sense. I guess I'd never expect him to look like a Viacon. Yes, if you look at Robots in Disguise Bumblebee, and put them right next to a Transformers Prime Viacon, they look quite similar. The window chest, the extra plates on the side, the wheels on the shoulders, and the legs. He's pretty much a Viacon now. That scares me. It really does. So design-wise, that's how much he's changed. Sideswipe is an interesting case, because in G1, the entire front of the Lamborghini forms his chest. Okay. In Robots in Disguise, that's pretty much the same thing. However, in G1, the Lamborghini that he turned into the headlights were practically on the hood, whereas in Robots in Disguise you have the hood and then the headlights. So the headlights have to come up and around and onto the hood to form his chest. His helmet though, his helmet, that's the part that bothers me, because in G1 he's a relatively normal looking Transformers helmet, but then in Robots in Disguise he's got that spike hair going on. Like, okay, not my favorite design, but it really does add to that punk look that Sideswipe should be known for. So, I like it, but it's not my favorite. I'm glad that Bumblebee doesn't have his horns. I didn't want to say that. I'm glad he doesn't have his horns that he had in G1. Okay, it's so weird. Cliffjumper can have horns. Bumblebee, not so much. So, that's Prime, Bumblebee, Sideswipe. There's Ratchet, who in G1 pretty much had the front of the vehicle as his chest. That's the windshield and the bumper. And what would have been the grill would have formed his abdomen, but since the van that he turned into didn't have a grill, he simply just had a gray block instead. Same thing with Ironhide. They shared the exact same body type. But in Prime, it's a bit different. Yeah, the front of the vehicle still forms his chest and his abdomen. The grill forms his abdomen, by the way. His windshield, believe it or not, is in fact in his chest, but the hood covers that, and the doors do as well. So you got the hood and the doors that cover his chest. He carries over the helmet. The helmet's practically exactly the same, except for an extra line that goes across the middle. So design-wise, he's not all that different. When he reappears in Robots in Disguise, he looks like a pretty G1-y version of himself. G1 mixed with Prime. Most characters in Robots in Disguise take seriously after their G1 designs, which, you know, is actually pretty good. I think that's interesting. Like, Sideswipe, you know, he's got a very G1 design. Ratchet, Optimus. Bumblebee is the only exception. Let's see, who else do we have? We've got Megatron. He has a very universal design, if you think about it, because as long as he's a big, giant, gray Decepticon with a fusion cannon, you can tell it's Megatron. Preferably if he has a Decepticon insignia in his chest, that also helps. In G1 and Prime, pretty much the exact same design, but in Prime, it's more rounded off, that's it. So, you know, good on ya! Very clever. Starscream, between G1 and Prime, pretty much just in Prime, he turns into a sleeker jet, so his robot mode is a lot slimmer, as opposed to his more blocky G1 design. Also, in G1, the cockpit formed his chest alongside the bottom of the jet, whereas in Prime, it's just the top of the jet, and the cockpit goes into his stomach, which borrows from the movies. The wings are on his back, as always. That's trademark Starscream. The helmet is obviously different. In G1, Seekers had an iconic helmet thing going on. In Prime, he ditches that. He's just got the little side vents and a red crest, and that's it. And then, for Robots in Disguise, he becomes very meta, I believe. Bumblebee, I believe he also says to Starscream, you know, going back to your old design, and I'm not sure exactly what that's a reference to, but it's very meta. I should know a thing or two about meta. Watch this. G1 music. Start. Ta-da! G1 music. So, he's just a really beefed up version of his G1 self. As everybody in Robots in Disguise is. Same thing with Soundwave, who appeared briefly as his Prime design, but the difference between G1 and Prime Soundwave is that in G1, he's a block. He's literally a block. And then he turns into a cassette tape. Somebody explain that shite to me. I lost it at Megatron turning into a gun. That's why they won't sell him anymore. Like, why? And then a cassette tape? It makes sense, but if he could turn into one that was more to scale, I'd believe that more. But typical Soundwave pretty much had minicons in his chest. He also had a visor and a faceplate, like this, similar to Optimus. But really, as cool as that is, that just doesn't seem practical. It's like, where would his spark go? In G1, things made no sense like that. But in Prime, they figured it out a little bit more, where Soundwave has Laserbeak on his chest instead. And instead of turning into a cassette tape, he turns into a UAV drone. And so, like Starscream, he's a lot slimmer. So much so that his arms are literally just the wings of the plane. And so they just dangle below his knees. Like, that is freaky. He ditched the face guard, extended visor, still got the Decepticon logo spikes on his helmet. But then when he returns in Prime, he carries over the exact same design with Laserbeak forming his torso, and then he comes back again with his more G1 design, and speaks. He just randomly speaks. Hey, as long as it's Frank Welker, I like it.
What is he attempting to build? Why is Megatron
stealing human
technology? What
is he attempting
to build?
Whoa. Optimus Prime, the remix.
Scrap this. Soundwave is no ordinary Cybertronian, inside or out. So I would strongly suggest opening him up, so we can have a first-hand look at the information recorded on his drives.
Uh-oh.
All right, he's downloading data.
No. Soundwave is erasing data.
Soundwave superior. Autobots inferior.
In that case, welcome to what is soon to be my Decepticon homeworld, brother.
You are of no relation to me, and this world is not yours.
You are correct, of course. Technically. I have brought the requested items.
Nuclear fusion-grade fuel rods confirmed.
Why do you want these anyway?
This is a transgalactic beacon generator, devised from wreckage recovered in the Shadow Zone. When activated at the highest point in the city, it will transmit a signal strong enough to summon Megatron back to Earth.
The highest point in the city? But that much radiation won't just call Megatron, it'll
Devastate the city, then spread to eradicate all life on Earth. Incidental collateral damage.
That wasn't my deal. I'm to rule Earth, a living planet, not a lifeless wasteland.
Your ambitions are irrelevant. Like the activators, you have served your purpose. Find another world to rule.
So, with the, I guess, new/old design, He's literally a mix between G1 and Prime, especially with those tentacle things. Get that shite out of here! Ugh! That borrows too heavily from the movies. He didn't go back to his faceplate. The visor still covers his face. Yes, I said that. In Fall of Cybertron, just like in G1, he had Optimus's faceplate and the visor. Well, he removed the visor, or not the visor, the faceplate, and extended the visor to cover his entire face. So he does in fact have a face under there. In Prime, there's literally a face under there. Megatron even calls it a visor. And Smokescreen says, I'm not even sure he has a face. I think it was Smokescreen. So, you know, just creepy, but he didn't go back to his full battle mask type design. And, you know, I'll get to battle masks in a minute with Prime, but that's all Soundwave had to do to be fully G1. But I prefer the entire visor thing. The whole faceplate thing for Optimus, I pretty much just watched Rodimus Primal's video on it. In G1, it's signature, it's iconic. People love it. It defines Optimus. I'll agree, it should in fact be present. I don't mind him having a mouth. There are some creepy designs, I'll give you that. But I think Prime, Transformers Prime, did it really well with the way the faceplate could retract, and he just had a typical mouth. Seeing Optimus Prime with a mouth really unsettled some people, but because that's what I grew up with, I'm used to it. So seeing him with the faceplate all the time that's what is interesting. Because you gotta wonder, in G1, did he have a mouth? He did, but I'm gonna leave that, you know, ambiguous. So, there's the G1 design summed up into the aligned continuity. Pretty much all of them. I just wish Ironhide was more prominent in it. I think he would have been freaking awesome. I so would have loved to see what he looked like in Robots in Disguise. You already know what he would have looked like in Prime, but nope. Anyway, that was the designs carried over from G1 to Aligned. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you all in the next video.